They told us the galaxy was dead. They lied. I was born in the underchambers of the Derelian belt, beneath the rusted exosphere of Aurelis 9, where the sun blinked once every 2 weeks. My cradle was a rust bin, my lullaby the scraping of orbital wreckage against the domes. By age 9, I could hotwire an Exoraptor Class 6 and reverse-splice quantum cells like a drunk assembler on third shift. But it wasn't until the day I found her, bleeding, silent, fierce, that I realized the silence of space isn't always empty. They called her an artifact. I called her real. It happened on the rim of Talkuva Drift, in the gravitational graveyard, where traders, smugglers, and unwanted things go to be forgotten. My scavenger crew had dropped me there to sweep the metal field for polycore rods and resync chips. As usual, they left without me. Insurance, they claimed. I'd always come back on my own. I was good at not dying, but that day, I didn't look for tech. I followed the howling. The sound shouldn't have existed. Vacuum doesn't. Carry it. But it licked against my skull like a breath, old and wrong. I pulled my breather tight and descended through the shell of a crashed ship, the hull warped like melted bone. Symbols, elegant, calligraphic, older than any human script, etched the walls. Nothing registered on my lexicon. Then I saw her, splayed across the remains of an incubation pod, lay a creature I had only seen in defunct myth archives, a silver-coated lupine, twice the size of a ground rover, with eyes like nebulae. During collapse, surrounding her were 3 cubs, 2 unmoving, the third weakly gnawing at an empty tube. Her chest heaved with shallow defiance. She was dying. I should have left. Every instinct in me screamed, this is not ours, not our species, not our war, not our burden. But I couldn't. I touched her just once. Her consciousness hit me like a detonation of stars, thoughts, images, places not on any chart, a sky that bloomed violet with dual suns, a city suspended in living crystal, war, fire, flight, betrayal, and one word, whispered in me by something not made for speech. Mercy light. I took her, all 4 of them, carried their collapsed forms into my crawler and fed them the only sustenance I had, my own rebreather fluids rich with trace biomatter. She didn't kill me for it. Days passed. I patched her wounds with regrow tape, wrapped the cubs in synth hide and whisperplast. I told no one, not even my comms log. The next time my crew picked me up, I lied, said the drift was barren. I had nothing to show. They mocked me, but I kept the truth hidden beneath the deck plating of my hold. She stayed with me, quiet, watching, healing. Her cubs lived. One, the smallest, latched onto my boot every time I walked past. I named him Shivek, not from any language I knew, but a word that slid into my thoughts from her mind, a memory of something tender and sharp. He grew fast. They all did. Then came the day the silence cracked. An inbound signature hit our cluster, an enormous alien dreadnought, blacker than the vacuum, shaped like 1,000 jagged bones crushed into an inverted crown. No known species matched the config. The moment it appeared, my wolf, Mercy Light, rose and howled. Not pain, recognition. She leapt into my control cabin, bared her fangs at the approaching vessel through the shield glass, and sent a single pulse from her mind. Into the ship's systems. Everything froze. She turned to me, and for the first time I understood her words. They betrayed me, left us to die. They come now to finish it. I asked her who they were. The Varnix Ascendancy. My kind once, now a void without soul. And then she added with something that could almost be sorrow, I broke their pact. I bore life with an outsider. I looked at the cubs. One had eyes too human. I looked at myself, and then I understood. They were hybrids, not of man and beast, but of divergent sentient evolution, an experiment, a rebellion, a family. Before I could ask more, the dreadnought released its probes. The sky turned white. We ran. I hid my crew's shuttle inside an asteroid trench and took Merciless and her young down into the magma tunnels of Betrayal Station, a mining post abandoned decades ago. She limped but did not falter. Her fur shimmered, with bioluminescent patterns shifting every time the Varnix scanners passed above us. Deep in the tunnels, I found the remains of old tech, pre-Earth fall before the Exodus. Hidden among it was a device I barely recognized, a stellar key coded with a gate signature long lost to history. It didn't match any route. When I showed it to Merciless, her breath caught. She pressed her snout against the key and whispered, "It opens the Null-Dawn core, home of the primal chain. They must not reach it. The dreadnought had come for more than blood. They wanted what she fled with, the knowledge to unbind creation itself. She asked me to help her destroy the key." I hesitated. She saw my doubt and drew closer. Her thoughts pierced mine again, not forcefully, but with painful clarity. "You are not one of them, but you are not one of us. Yet you have chosen. That is what makes you dangerous and precious. If I fall, protect them. Protect him," she meant Shivek. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. The Varnix descended. Shadow burners wiped clean the upper tunnels. Our hiding place trembled with the force of geopulses. I watched one of the cubs, Silanth, the largest, stand before a falling wall of fire to shield her siblings. She absorbed the blast. Her fur peeled. She didn't scream. She survived. We fled again, deeper into forgotten chambers, where the old miners had carved a shrine to something older than any god I knew. There, amid statues worn faceless by time, Merciless showed me how to access the inner core of the key. It required blood, not hers, mine. I asked why. Because you are what they fear, the unknown choice, the bridge. My blood opened the starline. For one brief second, the sky above the mine opened like a flower of gold and quantum starlight, showing me a world not touched by war or time. The Null-Dawn core. Then the dreadnought fired its primary cannon. Betrayal Station collapsed. Everything went dark. I woke with Shivek curled beside me, his muzzle singed, his flank covered in Merciless's blood. She had shielded us. I could feel her absence like a broken oath in my chest. The dreadnought was gone, but not defeated. I held the key. It hummed with the resonance of my DNA, with her DNA. We were bonded to it now. The cubs, my cubs, looked to me with eyes that saw beyond my skin, into the shifting matrix of possibility. Merciless had died saving me, saving them, saving something. Bigger than all of us. I had no choice anymore. I became the guardian of the key, of the secret, of a bloodline not meant to exist. I named the cubs anew with words that had no earth meaning: Shivek, Silanth, Onryan, and I began the journey to the Null-Dawn core. The stars would not be silent much longer. I once believed space was empty. Now I know it listens. The first pulse came 2 cycles after we escaped the ruins of Betrayal. A frequency so low it resonated in bone, not air, spread through our ship's hull like a warning whispered from a dying god. Shivek howled, the others trembled, and the key, and it glowed again. We had boarded the Virulence, a scavenged outpost runner from my past crew, now stripped to its core and rebuilt with stolen blacklight panels and salvaged Varnix alloy. I knew they'd track us through standard drift space, so I steered us through the ardent shallows, a nebula cluster no sane navigator approached. It was riddled with gravitic lace, folding time like paper. Inside, I saw memories not mine. A boy running on a mirrored surface beneath twin moons. A howl that shattered a crystal spire. A council of 7, each with eyes black as collapsed stars, Merciless's past. Or mine. Or both. It became hard to tell. Shivek spoke his first word there. Not in voice, his throat was still growing into something that could mimic language, but through thought. Clear. Strong. Why are we hunted? I had no answer that would satisfy. His growing mind. I told him truth. Because your birth was a choice they couldn't control." He didn't respond, but in his silence, I felt him begin to understand war. Our next stop was the Cradle of Iron, a floating husk of a forgotten Dyson fragment, where mercenaries and unbonded constructs sold ancient data for plasma and names. I needed answers. I needed allies, and I needed someone who remembered what came before the Varnics. That's where I met Teferian, not human, not machine. She was both and neither, wrapped in skin like obsidian, hair that flickered with internal circuitry, eyes of rotating glyphs. She greeted me by name before I spoke. "Bearer of the betrayed flame," she called me. She called the cubs the Chainborn. "You think the Ascendancy only feared her?" she said, glancing at Shivek, who growled low in his throat. "No. It is the offspring they fear, the ones born in defiance of classification, that which lives between boundary and breach. The Chainborn do not inherit power, they redefine it. Tefarian showed me records sealed since the founding of the Outer Pact, a treaty I'd never heard of, forged between human exiles and the ancient intelligences of the Varnics. A deal made in desperation, a deal that offered peace in exchange for extinction of crossbreeding. Mercylight's cubs weren't just an accident. They were a breach of galactic law, a sin etched in stellar contracts, and now I was bound to them by blood. While we negotiated with Tefarian, a shadow ship entered the cradle. I felt it before our senses did. The station's air thinned. Noise died. A presence, heavy and slow as ice drift, moved through the crowd. None resisted. They parted like bacteria before an antibody. They were called the Nullrend, Varnics assassins born of cold and silence, wrapped in unlight armor that absorbed sound, time, and thought. And they were not hunting me. They were hunting Shivek. He stood between them and the ship, defiant in a way that only something too young to understand death could be. They spoke no words, just moved. Liquid shadows, twin blades that shimmered with anti-gravity pulses flicked forward, and Silenth intercepted. She moved faster than light should allow. She took a blade to her spine, yowled once, and tore through the nearest Nullrend with her jaw. The station screamed. Panic, stampede, explosions. I fired plasma rounds with hands that shook. Onrayan shielded Shivek with his body. Then Tefarian intervened. She sang. I cannot describe it any other way. She emitted a frequency, perfect, crystalline, deep, and the remaining Nullrend shattered into particles, evaporating like they were illusions never meant to exist in this layer of space. When silence returned, Silenth was breathing. Barely. I held her, blood pooling in my arms. "She is the first to awaken the chainfold," Tefarian whispered, "a glimpse of what the cubs may become." "What is the chainfold?" I asked, heart racing. "It is not a power, it is a state, a convergence. The reason the Nulldawn core must never be opened by hands with intent. The chainfold chooses when possibility must break through pattern, when the old rules must end." And she just stepped into it. I wanted to run, hide, return the cubs to some corner of existence, where stars were too dim to be noticed. But Shivek disagreed. "We go forward," he thought, pressing his snout to Silenth's broken flank. Mother would have. He never said her name aloud, not once. I made the decision in that moment. We'd reach the core, not to destroy it, not to seal it, but to understand it, even if it ended me. Our journey took us through the Rift of Karandul, a transit zone older than recorded history, layered in overlapping time echoes. Here the ship began to dream. I saw myself as I was never born, child of a noble house, warrior of the last earthbound fleet, prisoner aboard a Varnics cradle ship, architect of rebellion. Possibilities. Ghosts. They called my name from mirrors, each one a version of me that had made a different choice. Shivek stood by me in everyone, In one reflection I saw him grown, taller than me, armored in living metal, eyes glinting with starlight and sorrow. In another, I was dying, and he screamed as they took the key from my hand. In every vision, the cubs lived, in none did I. We emerged from the rift into deadlight expanse, where the Null-Dawn Gate was rumored to reside. Nothing, no star, no planet, just a darkness so dense it bent the idea of light itself. Then the cubs howled, together, a song of grief, defiance, and memory. The void responded. A door opened in nothing. Not a gate, not a wormhole. A literal door, arched in gold, bordered in pulsating veins of crystal, orbiting nothing, suspended on belief alone. I approached it. The key pulsed in my palm. "Do not open it yet," Teferian said through the comms, distant. "Now. The core will show you everything, even the betrayals you survived to forget." I asked her what she meant. "You think your bond with Mercy Light was pure, but what if it was orchestrated? What if even love was their experiment?" The core reveals not just power, it reveals motive. "Are you ready for that, Flamebearer?" I didn't answer, because part of me already knew. I had loved Mercy Light, not with the passion of lovers, but with the fire of recognition, soul to soul, species to species. She saw me not as a human, not as a scavenger, but as something equal. Something born beyond design. If that was engineered, then I would shatter every engineer responsible. I stepped toward the door. Shivik followed, and the gate began to open. They say the truth sets you free, but I never asked to be unshackled. When the gate opened, light didn't pour out. It folded inward. I watched the fabric of void pull back, like skin peeled from a wound. Beyond it, not a place, not a world. Something deeper, a memory made real, a construct forged from consciousness, waiting to be entered but not passively. You didn't step into the Null-Dawn core. It stepped into you. The cubs entered first, bold, unafraid. Shivek turned his head toward me, his eyes no longer those of a child. They held echoes of galaxies I'd never seen. "Come," he said, spoke this time. His voice was raw thunder and wind over ice. I followed, and the stars changed. I was not prepared for what lay beyond. There was no sky, no ground, just a horizon of memory, crystallized into endless structures, spires shaped like the bones of extinct beasts, bridges woven from light that moved with breath, temples of data suspended in time. The air buzzed with possibility. Every step echoed with lives I hadn't lived. A girl kneeling beside a dying wolf on a battlefield. A soldier cradling a cub that glowed with ember light. A child reaching through glass toward a machine mother who could not love. Every vision layered over itself, folding and unfolding, as if the core was reading me, revealing my soul by breaking it apart. Shivek stood still in the center of it all, the other two behind him. Silanth was healed. Her scars now shimmered with gold. Onryan pulsed with quiet energy, his form subtly changing with each breath. No longer wolf, not quite man. Something in between. I asked them what they saw. Silanth responded through the bond. Truth, pain, future. And then Shivek pointed toward a column of violet flame, twisting high into the black. Mother. The column was not just fire, it was her, or rather, her last imprint. Mercy Light's memory, encrypted in the core. I stepped into it. I expected warmth, grief, love. Instead, I found betrayal. A chamber formed around me, filled with glassy orbs. In each, a version of her, one with me, one without, one torn open on a Varnic slab, one standing beside a council of crystal beings I recognized. From no world, a voice, hers or something using her, spoke in my mind. Your meeting was arranged, your bond cultivated. You were chosen not by accident but by algorithm. Each word crushed a part of me. I dropped to my knees, hands in my hair. Mercy Light had been sent to meet me. Her survival was never coincidence. Our flight, a pain, our love, shaped by a design I had no hand in. I screamed, and from the core of my voice came a different sound. A sound not mine, but older, rough, wild. It broke the chamber. Glass shattered. The fire twisted. Shivak rushed in, eyes burning. "They lied to you," he said, "but you chose. That is what makes you real. Not her, not them, you." Then the core spoke, not in sound but in pressure, folding itself around me. A lattice of glyphs poured from the walls, coiling around my skin like a second nervous system. Pain lanced through my spine as the key, the one I'd carried since Pyrrhal, disintegrated into dust and embedded itself into my chest. My veins lit like stars. I felt my blood rewrite, my breath became unstable. I collapsed, vision flickering, and then I saw it, the Vein Star. It was not a planet, not a weapon, not even a place. The Vein Star was a being, a living node between existence and potential, slumbering in the belly of the Null-Dawn core. And it was waking. Its eyes opened across the walls of my mind. It showed me its prison, 1,000 Varniks. Priests encircling it, drawing power while suppressing awareness. They fed on possibility like leeches. Mercy Light had escaped with the last fragment of uncorrupted chainfold code, the ability to break the script, and now it lived in me. I came to, gasping, the cubs forming a circle around me. The core was collapsing, not destructively, but evolving, responding to the presence of one who had not been born of it. I was not supposed to be here. I was rewriting the pattern, and that made me dangerous. Suddenly, everything shifted. The door back to the universe appeared again, but not the same place we came from. Through the opening, I saw the burning remnants of the cradle of iron, shattered and floating, fire trailing behind mangled bodies and drifting stations. We were too late. The Varniks had struck. Tefarian's voice came through fractured comms. "They know where you are now. They felt you awaken the core. You must run, the Chainborn must scatter, or everything ends." I looked at the cubs. They were no longer cubs. They had grown inside the core. Not in size alone, but in thought. Silynths. Claws crackled with bioelectric discharge. Onrayan floated 6 inches above the ground, cloaked in distortion. Shivak radiated energy I could feel through layers of armor. "We do not run," Shivak said. "We remember what they did to her. We remember what they fear, and we become more." The moment we stepped through the exit, we were ambushed. Ships, 10, maybe more, descended like vultures, marked with the sigil of House Nivarek, an offshoot of the Varniks, long thought extinct. Their war singers broadcast a signal across all frequencies: surrender the Chainborn, or burn with them. I stood on the bridge of the Virulence, arms bloodied, chest searing with glyph light, and spoke only one word into the open channel. No. What followed was not a battle. It was rebirth. Silynth ripped through 2 ships by shattering their drives with frequency pulses. Onrayan phased through hulls and turned gravity inside out. Shivak became light, moving between enemy cores and whispering entropy into their engines. I held the ship together, mind linked to every panel, hands guiding ion flows like a symphony. The Virulence became part of me, an extension of my blood, of the key, of the Vein Star itself. We didn't win. We survived. They retreated, leaving warnings in every language. You have become what was forbidden. The war resumes. And I realized something. In the silence that followed, it was never about stopping a war. It was about making sure we were born to fight it. The cubs gathered around me. We were orbiting the edge of the core now. A new gate had appeared, shimmering, unstable, fluctuating between dimensions. I felt its call. Behind it, Earth, not as I remembered, older, wilder, changed but real, a new beginning. Shivek looked to me. "Do we go?" I looked at the scars on my arms, the glyphs in my veins, the ghosts I now carried. I thought of mercy light, of the lie that birthed truth, and I said, "Yes, but we go to finish what they began. Not to run, to hunt." I didn't think Earth would recognize me. It didn't, or maybe I was the one who had forgotten. We emerged into its orbit on the third revolution of its artificial dusk, the sky cloaked in pale smoke, the oceans too still, no stars visible, no clouds, just the grey hush of a world waiting to be remembered. Earth was not abandoned. It was sequestered, cordoned by quantum fortresses orbiting like dead gods, silent and hollow-eyed. They tracked us but didn't fire. Yet, the vain star inside. Me pulsed, uneasy. "They're watching," Onrain whispered beside me, his voice now layered, almost melodic. But not with eyes. The others said nothing. They felt it too. Earth was listening, and it remembered us. We descended into what used to be the African continental arc, now known as the Vestigial Crescent. A cradle city, partially reclaimed by overgrowth, partially devoured by machines no longer maintained. Great towers leaned like drunk sentinels. The air smelled like static and rot. Shivek led. His eyes were no longer entirely organic. Veins of shifting light coursed just beneath. His fur. He didn't speak much now. He simply knew where to go, as if the core had planted coordinates into his instincts. At the center of the crescent lay the fulcrum, a temple fortress carved directly into the bones of a pre-ascendancy mind engine. I remembered stories of it, a machine built to dream futures, then locked away when it began to dream only extinction. Inside, we found the ones who never left. They were not human, not anymore. They called themselves the Ashborn, keepers of the precedent, descendants of those who first struck the pact with the Varniks. Their bodies were covered in luminescent ash ink, their voices filtered through dust masks shaped like moths. The leader, Rahadis Vaith, stood with a blade made of petrified light and eyes sealed by surgical glass. She looked at us and said, "You've broken the seal. The Vain Star hums again. The Chainborn live. So the pact is broken." She offered no greeting, no threat, only recognition. "You came to kill us?" I asked. Radis turned, and with her came silence. "We came to choose." They took us beneath the fulcrum, into the Chamber of Roots, a circular space where vines of memory twined with cables. There, buried in the floor, was a being, not dead, not alive, a massive wolf-like creature, far larger than Mercy Light had ever been, encased in obsidian shell and slowly pulsing light. Around it, frozen in half-motion, were people, locked in suspended animation, as if mid-breath, mid-word, mid-betrayal. Radis gestured. "This is the Mother of Mercy," she said, "the first Chainborn, the last true Alpha. She saw what the pact would cost and tried to undo it. They entombed her in time. Your Mercy Light was her last echo." I stepped forward. The creature's eye, just one, opened, and I saw myself in it. Her voice poured into me like smoke through broken glass. "You were never meant to be their pawn. You were my choice. The line ends, or begins, with you." And then she fell silent. The Ashborn offered us a decision: become the next precedent. Seal the chainfold forever, eliminate the cubs, preserve balance, or burn it all down. Free the chainfold, let evolution spiral out of control. Let the universe feel what the Varniks feared most, a force born of both pattern and anomaly, love and defiance. I looked at Shivik Silanthon Rain. They were not just beings, not tools. Not mistakes, they were becomings, each one a rupture in the script of fate, each one a child of truth shaped through lie. If I killed them, maybe peace would follow. If I didn't, The war would never end. You have to decide, Radis said. You're the key, the last one who can, and I realized the real betrayal. It was never the lie of Mercy Light's love. It was the idea that only one could choose. I looked to Shivek. This isn't just my story anymore. He stepped forward, lifted his head. His voice echoed through the chamber, splitting walls. Then let the chain fold open. Let the Alpha rise. Let us be more than weapons and symbols. Let us be free. The chamber cracked. The obsidian shell burst. The Mother of Mercy awoke and the world screamed. Flame and frost erupted as the chamber dissolved into a quantum maelstrom. Ashbourne screamed. Radis fell to her knees, laughing even as her mind unraveled. So it begins again, she whispered. The Ashen Dawn. I grabbed the cubs, my family, and we ran. Not away, toward the roar of liberation, toward the storm, toward the future not written. The fulcrum fell, the sky tore open and the stars remembered our names. 19 years later, I sit beneath the silver leaves of the rewoven earth, the air now full of song. The war came, and we survived. Not by force, not by victory, but by refusing to choose the lesser evil. Shivek walks now as an envoy between worlds. He speaks less than I ever did, but when he does, empires bend. Silenth teaches, Onrayan builds. And me? I am only the flame-bearer. No longer key, no longer weapon, just the one who stayed, the one who believed. The chain fold still pulses, and the stars keep listening.